what a lot of people need to understand is that veganism is returning to home for every single person on this planet, especially Black people and people of color. Another more complicated issue that I have been dealing with personally since I've been vegan actually comes from fellow people of color who doubt my loyalty to human civil rights issues. And that ranges from so many different things to like migrant workers, which it's funny they should say that because migrant workers are also exploited in the animal agriculture industry, and that's a lot of what I talk about. I do absolutely understand their frustration when it comes to white vegans comparing the lives of Black people to the lives of animals, although I do it as well. You can compare them. It doesn't mean that they are the same. In fact, that is exactly what a comparison is. It means that these two things are different, but here are some of the ways in which they worked the same way. As soon as it becomes a more equal weight to bear, we can bear that weight equally. But I don't see you talking about it. I don't see any of the people that I went to high school with or that are in my age group, I don't see them talking about it. There's also this myth that is a part of the problem, actually, that it seeks to criticize, that people of color cannot afford to eat vegan food. And it's because of this very myth that the people of color don't eat vegan food because they just assume that it's too expensive for them and that they can't afford it. And let me tell you, if you have at least a minimum wage job, especially if you have no other mouths to feed, you absolutely can eat a vegan diet. I do it all the time. I do it every day. Basically, the cheapest foods on the planet are rice and beans and potatoes and root vegetables like your advantage. Whatever is local to you most likely will be cheaper because it hasn't been imported. You just have to use logic the same way you would use it when you're buying animal products. Like if you know this one supermarket has really cheap cuts of meat for whatever reason it may be, I go to international marts because I know that they have a higher turnover on their produce. Therefore, they're able to market a lot lower because they don't have as much waste as a Harris Teeter or an American type Western grocery store where the food sits on the shelf all day and it's, sprayed with all kinds of stuff. There is a learning curve, absolutely, and I do understand people's sentiment when they're talking about not being able to think about that right now or not being able to focus on eating vegan because they are so focused on just making enough money walking down the street and not getting shot and things like that. And those are totally valid. When someone else is making room for Black vegans, what does it do to try to tell me that I'm forgetting about all these people who can't be vegan? Does that mean that I shouldn't be vegan? Does that mean that I shouldn't disseminate this information that you yourself are saying they don't have? What's the point of me being vegan if I'm not going to talk about it as a Black vegan to add to this community so that it is available to our community? That is exactly precisely what I am doing by speaking as a Black vegan. And I do think that white vegans definitely have to find their place in using those kinds of comparisons. Eating animals is the very first form of oppression because we are taught that these certain animals we eat, but other animals we take care of, like cats and dogs or even giraffes and exotic animals. It creates speciesism, which a lot of people will laugh at, I'm sure, but it is another form of ism. It's discrimination based on your species. One, it means that you believe that humans are the superior species above all other species, as well as that some species are above other species, like cats and dogs and dolphins and turtles are above pigs and chickens and goats and pigs. I've already said pigs. This idea is ingrained in us so soon, so deeply that literally when I bring it up, or when I bring up how eating animals is wrong, people can't even view animals as a victim anymore. They have become so victimized that it's just common knowledge that they can't possibly be victims. Can you imagine being in a class of that, or being from a race, or a species where your species, just based on its species, is considered not able to be victimized because they are animals? And so my point is that because this is the first form of oppression that we learn to do to animals, it becomes so much easier to then do it to each other. We can go on learning that cats and dogs are more important and more valuable and more deserving of respect than a pig or a goat or a chicken. And it makes it that much easier to say that these people are worthy of more respect or less respect based on whatever arbitrary things people want to base it on. Now, this does not mean that you have to go out adopting every dog at a shelter or be this huge animal lover. All it means is that you respect that that animal has a right to live. So it's off of this principle, I feel, that all other oppression stems. I often refer to how Black people, when they were enslaved, were referred to as animals. They were compared to animals, and a lot of the animal agriculture practices for restraining animals and things like that existed during slavery as well, and that's actually where they got those techniques from animal agriculture, because it was happening before slavery even was happening. Not all slavery, just in that case, like slavery has been happening unfortunately everywhere and in all types of different forms, and even today unfortunately, and some of that slavery is in the animal agriculture industry with humans as well as the animals. It's just a lot more complicated than people like to give it credit for, and so they feel that they can, I don't even know, exert their like stereotypical lens on what your message means and how you should be presenting it as the actual like Black vegan woman that you are. Like anyone who looks at veganism as a white thing or a privileged thing or an elitist thing, we are all privileged to have autonomy over our food choices. If you go to the grocery store and you buy your groceries, you can buy vegan groceries. Like, that's just a given. If you have a car, if you have transportation to the grocery store, and they have rice, and they have beans, and they have potatoes, and you've got an oven and pots and pans to cook in, then you can eat vegan. And probably even if you don't have pots and pans to cook in, like I know people who cook potatoes in the microwave. I don't know, but people who have resources to cook at home, and even to eat out, like there's so many ways to eat vegan on a Chinese menu, or even like maybe not McDonald's, but Wendy's, or they have baked potatoes. Their French fries are vegan, to my understanding. There's just always ways, and just to dismissively say that not everyone can eat vegan or not everyone can afford it, that is what is perpetuating this idea that not everyone can afford it. Food desert situations are different, but even then, there are often ways that are just overlooked and resources that just aren't being used. Like at the farmer's market, you can get your EBT doubled, but because Black people have this stigma against the farmer's market as a white place, they don't even know that they can get their EBT doubled if they shop at the farmer's market in some places. Like in Greensboro at the Curb farmer's market, that's how it is. There's the myth that we don't care about migrant workers when lots of slaughterhouse workers are immigrants or refugees or ex-cons or just people who are disenfranchised for whatever reason. It's people like these people criticizing me who are paying and basically forcing these people, coercing these people with their dollar to do these jobs against their better judgment, because they are so vulnerable and they can't really say no, or they'll be deported, or whatever the case. Some cases maybe the only job that they have available to them, because no one else wants to do that, and we literally coerce them with our dollar to do that job for us, and we wouldn't do it ourselves. That is privilege. That is elitism. Anyway, I could say so much more, but it's starting to rain, so I hope this video wasn't taken angrily, but yeah, I mean, I get criticized all the time for just not, I don't know, being Black enough, being too Black, but never just the right amount of Black. Actually, some people do. I'm joking at this point, but I hope somebody enjoyed this video. And, next video, I want to talk about being bald and Black and a woman in the South. So Let me know if that is interesting, and have a good day.